Just a year ago, it would have been hard to imagine that Dubai's Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, would be donning the Turkish flag. After years of strained ties, Turkey and the UAE have seen relations improve dramatically over the past several months. And that was on full display on Monday as President Recep Tayyip Erdogan arrived in Abu Dhabi, his first visit to the Gulf state in nearly a decade. Topping President Erdogan's meeting with Crown Prince Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan was the growing economic partnership between Turkey and the UAE. The two leaders oversaw the signing of 13 agreements covering everything from trade, defense, health, and climate change. Also touched on were the security challenges facing the region. Iranian-backed Houthi rebels from Yemen have launched several drone and missile attacks on the UAE since the start of this year. Talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal have also hit a roadblock, raising fears of renewed tensions between Washington and Tehran. And to discuss where ties between Ankara and Abu Dhabi are headed, joining me now from Istanbul is Helin Ertem. She is an associate professor of international relations at Istanbul Medeniyet University, and from Amsterdam, Sinem Cengiz. She is a Gulf analyst and columnist at Arab News, a Saudi-based newspaper. Ladies, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Helin, tell us about the current state of the UAE-Turkey relations. President Erdogan, prior to his departure from Turkey, said that his visit will aim to shape the next 50 years of friendship and brotherhood with the United Arab Emirates. What does that mean?
Well, actually, we understand that Turkey is trying to establish better relations, not for a short time, not for a government basis only, but this seems to be a kind of state policy for the next 50 years, which is quite interesting because the two countries actually had quite tense relations in the near past.
Yes.
But what we understand is actually that this kind of improvement in bilateral relations is actually important for the region, for the United States relations with the region, for Israel, and so on. So this is a complex situation which is in the interest of many countries in the region, including the global state, the United States. So
yes.
In my point of view, yeah, everything will be in harmony if all these countries can manage to decrease their divergences regarding their political statements, positions,
yes.
and so on.
So, Sinem, what would a strategic political partnership between the two countries mean for the region, and how significant is that Turkey and the UAE have already begun talks on free trade agreements?
Well, Turkish President Erdogan's first visit to UAE since 2013, which reciprocates Mohamed bin Zayed's visit to Ankara last November, is symbolically very significant. The way how he was received and the agreement signed, and the way how the Emirati media outlets had covered this visit, referring to a strategic relationship, was all indicating that the two countries are keen to move beyond the past and maximize their interests based on win basis. So we see that this all did not happen overnight. Similar to Al-Ula Declaration, several developments related to domestic, regional, and international levels have played a role in this rapprochement. Of course, the beginning of the talks over the comprehensive economic partnership deal was the most important aspect of the visit. As we know that last year, UAE had already started to approach to other countries, including South Korea, India, Britain, and also Turkey is included in this. As part of its post-COVID economic strategy, it aims to sign free trade deals. And we know that Turkey had already had inked a framework agreement with the GCC sub-regional bloc itself in 2005 in Manama. But so far, the talks have been not concluded. Last time in 2010 in Kuwait, the GCC mentioned that they have some difficulties in concluding the deal despite the economic progress. So this free trade agreement talks will, of course, encourage the other Gulf countries countries, most likely Kuwait and Qatar, to look forward towards a free trade deal. But of course, UAE taking the leap towards this as the first country is important, as it's the largest trading partner within the GCC compared to other countries.
So, Helin, is the UAE moving to replace Qatar as Turkey's top Gulf partner? Because even Turkey and Qatar do not have free trade agreements.
Well, there can be a kind of rivalry, but in my point of view, Turkey should not have to. Should not be in a position of making choices, and taking sides in between the regional countries. I think the biggest point, the significant point here, is to establish a better relationship with all of the countries in the region. This is in harmony with Turkey's national interests, and this is in harmony with Turkey's alliance relationships with the West. So in my point of view, Turkey should not, for example, take side with the United Arab Emirates and forget about Qatar, but the best point would be to have a harmony in between all these countries.
So, Sinem, you have just briefly mentioned the economic losses all the world countries have suffered due to the COVID-19, and that's why they are recalibrating their relations within the region. But what other global developments have helped spur not just Turkey's improved relations with Gulf countries, but also between Gulf countries as well?
Of course, as I mentioned, on the international context, the changing US policies and the Biden administration's messages to Gulf countries and Turkey is significant here. The nuclear talks, beginning of the nuclear talks, the way US had left Afghanistan have sent messages, not only that they started to question the US commitment, but this also highlighted the importance of a regional cooperation, similar to pre-2011 era. So on the regional level also, the signing of the Al Ula Declaration eased the intra-Gulf dynamics and also gave the incentives to Turkey to mend the ties with the Gulf countries. And on the domestic level, of course, the post-COVID challenges and the expenses of the military-based foreign policies have exhausted actually both leaderships, and Turkey's economic situation and the UAE's need to invest in accordance with its vision 2030, and it's of course, as a small Gulf country but having greater regional ambitions. This rapprochement is, of course, should be written within a broader context.
Yes,
which has not only forced Turkey, but all the regional countries to adjust this new environment. So a new gray zone has been created at the moment between Turkey and the UAE, and they are trying to invest within that zone.
So, Helin, you've also mentioned the importance of normalized ties for the broader region, but are all regional countries on board with Turkey's normalization efforts? For example, how are Saudi Arabia, Israel, Egypt, and Iran reacting to these latest developments?
Well, actually, there are certain problems in the region which forces most of the regional countries to create a kind of better relationship. We have Libya, we have Syria, we have problems in the Eastern Mediterranean. So looking at many of the countries such as Egypt, the Gulf countries and Turkey, we see there that they all need to achieve a kind of better relationship in between each other. So looking from Iranian side, I think this would not be welcomed very much. Because we have a Yemen issue as well. We have the attacks from Houthi groups, rebellion groups in Yemen towards UAE. So this is another threat from Iranian and Yemenian side on United Arab Emirates. So it is of course difficult to combine all national interests of these regional countries on one basket. But I think there is a great effort to at least overcome the problems of the past, which were mainly created by the difficult situation after the Arab Spring and especially the Syrian civil war. So all partners, all the actors in the region are in an effort to reach an approachment between each other. And I think this is in harmony with Turkey's interests, which is also in various difficulties in regional
So,
circumstances.
Sinem, could Turkey and the UAE engage economically while they confront each other politically and ideologically? What's your take on that? Or will they just abandon their foreign policy ambitions?
Well, despite the steps taken towards normalization, we know that there are still several issues remain to be solved. At least they are not discussed by the parties publicly. That's what we know. But the disagreements over Libya, Syria, and Eastern Mediterranean are still there. Seems to be frozen for now. But this doesn't mean that the states have gave up their ambitions. But it is a kind of a recognition that now the conflict should be moved towards a more de-escalated version. So the tools have been changed in this new era. We can say that from hard power to soft power.
Yes.
But I believe that the sustainability will be the main challenge, but the sustainability will depend on the interplay of several contending factors in the domestic political arena and in the regional dynamic,
Okay.
but also international context will be important. Lastly, the elections approaching in Turkey, scheduled for 2023 and for US 2024, will likely to have an impact. And we need to see that now a dialogue channel has been opened, and
Yes.
it's important to invest on this, and they have to avoid their differences and manage the changing conditions in the region.
So, Helin, is Turkey pursuing a coordinated policy with all regional actors? Which country do you think seems harder to reconcile with?
Well, due to the Khashoggi case, I think it's significant or it is harder, relatively harder, to create a rapprochement between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, but this is not impossible. At the same time, there is a possibility to move on. And we see that both countries are in an effort to continue in a better line. So there are problems, especially with Saudi Arabia, but still I believe that there is a kind of understanding on both sides to improve the relations in coming future.
Yes. All right, ladies, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.